I know that we're on this kind of slippery slope. I think that the one of the things that has gone on, I'll share with the audience, is my healthy, wonderful daughter uh, is always just involved. She got more friends than I ever thought to have in my entire life. I mean, the girl every weekend there's something going on, and but she had a doctor's appointment, and she's 15, still going to see the child doctor person. So they make the appointment. She goes in and tells the doctor that she has been having, anxiety and depression, to a degree, to a level that caused him to say, "Hey, you need to bring her back." Now, it was kind of news to us, but when we got home and I asked her about what was going on, I have to, being a professional at it, I honestly had to gnaw my tongue off in my head because my inclination was to, as a parent, is to freak out. And I really was like, well, I can't be your therapist, so I really just need to let this play out. Then she went back to the appointment, but um, that doctor said, "Hey, here are these treatment things." And that's when I just had to say, okay, I got it. I didn't go because I didn't want to be the guy, because I know what would happen. I'd go, I'd listen, understanding the world of acute psychiatric care as well as I do. It wouldn't be helpful for me to be there, right? Because this is a, general practitioner and whatnot. But it occurred to me that our children these days are inundated with a never ending judgment. When we were kids, you left school, you went home, you didn't answer your phone, you were isolated from it. Unless somebody was really coming after you and knocking on your door and hollering outside your door, you didn't get it. But my daughter, and I will say this, we have done a wonderful job, because I know what a bad job is, because I did that too with my other kids, right? I know what not doing it well is. And yet here we were, looking at the situation, not understanding what it is. And it occurred to me, and I want to know what you guys think, is that I think that she has never had a down day. There's never been a day where she has been isolated from, stuff with the phone. And we've talked about that. I know with the media, the constant in your hand stuff, which she's a very responsible person. But the byproduct of that, the sickness, is that she thinks that she's depressed when, as a professional, I would say that, she's not, but she thinks she is. So there it is. And I honestly think that it's just too much all the time. There's no out in the yard doing hard work, knowing what hard work is. It's, her 10 on that scale would be Craig and I's 2, if at all, if it even registered. What do you guys think?
Well, I know an intended cycle to things where we restore, rejuvenate, and revive. And that's why there's holidays, right? That's why there's vacations. That's why there's supposed to be a Sabbath. And I know when I've violated that principle, I've burnt out. And you guys have seen it. And it's not glamorous. It's not pretty. It's just me being smoked and behind on everything. And it's frustrating. And it's not how we're supposed to work. So I think that basic principle is one aspect of it. And of course, this is more complex and sophisticated than just that. But that's one thing that I think we can all look at and go, okay, there is supposed to be a season for everything, and there's supposed to be a cycle that we live by, which can be maintained indefinitely. And if you try to run all four burners on high 24/7, you're gonna burn the house down.
Right.
it doesn't last for long. You can do it, but there's a price. And
Yeah.
so that's the first thing that occurred to me about that is, man, that's a basic principle that, I've told myself, wrongly so, that I didn't have the time to take a day off to revive, to restore, to heal, to rejuvenate. And I had to catch up on what hadn't happened through whatever chain of events through the rest of the week or the month or the year. I've got to do all this, and then next thing I know, my family members have come over and visited and left, and I was still engrossed in some task. Wasn't even there for those who matter for me most. And I'm like, okay, that's getting it wrong. That right there was not what it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
And so, that's one aspect that jumped out to me immediately, in addition to what the others will see and bring on the more direct to your point. But that's a more basic, fundamental aspect of it from my
Now I'm tracking.
perspective.
I think that it's, you could say that it's your children, it's us, it's all of us. Now I'm better at it because I really can't, being who I am as a writer or musician, I can't be stapled to the phone or social media, and I can't be distracted. It's very difficult for me to get anything done if I'm doing that. But my daughter, my wife, most people I see, they never step away from it, and I think that this idea of mental illness is really what they're told. Like if they feel empty because other people are saying, "Oh man, I feel empty," and this is how I'm dealing with it. It's like a steady stream of negativity, even when they're trying to be positive. Am I making sense?
It's
When
like a
somebody's saying,
placebo effect.
right, but in the opposite,
Yeah,
like they're
yeah.
saying,
Those planted seeds are
right,
devastating to
right,
people. They tend
right,
to buy into it, believe it. Well, I believe it's all by design. I think it's intentional from everything I've learned from the intelligence community and the study of global power and global governance, those manipulating for that control of other humans. And really are people that think like a Dr. Evil character. I mean,
yeah,
it's strange to see that there are people that way. But once you look at it through that and at the highest possible level through a spiritual lens, the forces of good and evil are in conflict. And that's all about the awareness, the consciousness of who we are and why we're here.
yeah,
Because someone who's very conscious of where their power lies, whose they are, and why they're here, where their rescue, where their salvation, where their power comes from, that you have a whole society like that, they're impossible to enslave and subjugate under your boot.
right,
Your spin won't mean anything to them because they already see things clearly. So there's that war over awareness over who you are. So this country
yeah,
more than any other, and the scientists are studying now with the pineal gland as far as spiritual awareness, consciousness, and people say, well, maybe that's new age. Well, you could put labels on groups of people who study things, but the fact is the scientists are comprehending that there's a pineal gland about the size of a grain of rice in the middle of your brain, and they're learning that in its healthiest state is free of deposits and vibrates. And that's what really gives people a spiritual awareness. Well, if your diet and your environment are very toxic and you're blasted by Wi-Fi and aluminum and several other things, that thing gets crusted over and it doesn't work. And you have zero spiritual awareness. So if we look at it through a bigger lens of control, if you want people not to know who they are or have any hope and to be easily controlled, you want them dumbed down and separated, and those people are easily subjugated. So there's a lot behind all that. And if you look at a lot of these health gurus and everything online, they talk about it pretty extensively now. You talk to anybody that's very dialed in spiritually, they talk about it extensively. It's all connected, it all does fit
yeah,
together. But you
right,
have to bother getting out from the mainstream narrative that you're just an accident and your life is meaningless. Take all that you can, hoard for yourself, step on your neighbor, and when you die, you're just done and that's it. You're just like a frog or anything else. And if you believe that bleak outlook, then why would you give selflessly to your
Mhm.
neighbor? Why would you love and help and stand up and do something good? Why would you selflessly assist others and lift up? And why, so
Yeah.
it's all of that. And I see that in everything that's happening now. And once you get it, you get it. What's known can't be unknown. You can't be unseen. And it was in the intelligence community that I first started learning about the struggle for control globally, and that so much of the narrative that we are fed is deliberately misinformation. And what's beautiful now, JT, is that so much is coming out about history that's been really, really distorted. And you're like, wait a minute, that's not accidental. You
Mhm.
know, that event's not what they told us at all. Come to
Yeah.
find out now, with all the whistleblowers and the court cases and the evidence and the declassed documentation, so many things are coming out, and we're realizing, wow, really have been sold out
Yeah.
very, very extensively, and it is deliberate.
Well,
So
they
once you
feed.
break through all that, a lot of these things make sense. Do get outside, do get healthy, do get away from the Wi-Fi, away from the blue screens, away from the toxins, away from all the steady stream of meds, all of it that really, really does drag us down, man. And you're
Yeah.
like, we're smarter than this, aren't we? Yeah, at the high end, humanity is smarter than that. But the sad part is, the wicked abuse that knowledge to an attempt to try to control and dumb down and subjugate others. So it's
Right. Right.
that's that's that aspect of it.
Forrest, you got something for me?
Well, I look at, I'm going to give you an example I was just thinking of. The constant information that we're really drinking from a fire hose. So you get back when we were kids, you had the 5 o'clock news and you had the 10 o'clock news. You only got news twice a day. And today, you see all these instances where people feel like they can't live without. You take phones, for example. I mean, who would have thought when we were younger people that somebody would camp out to get a phone, get the latest and greatest phone, or people would pay the amount of dollars they pay for tennis shoes because an actor or an influencer or a sports figure has those type of shoes. And so I think the same, I think we try to make things more complicated. And you've got two parts of your brain that are functioning. One of them is um, your logic chip, the other one is your dopamine center. My mom said something to me over the weekend, and she said that she believes the brain is an antenna and it's just receiving whatever it receives, what input it receives. And as Craig was saying, the pineal gland, that's how we connect to a higher power. And if you gum it up or if you distract it, then you can't connect to that higher power. And I think that there's a basis connection to your logic chip. And if you notice the way we grew up, we dealt with conflict resolution early on in the playground as young men playing football, baseball, soccer. You know, if Elizabeth was my sister and Craig said something about Elizabeth that I didn't like, I'd punch him and then we would resolve that issue. And he would quit doing it. If I said something about his sister, he'd punch me and we would resolve that issue. And so those, I think that when you look at how this information, number one, it's telling you what your values are or how valuable you are. And I think that's very strange to think that you're going to derive your value from an unknown source. That's really what it is. It's an unknown source. And the people around you, your friends and family, they think highly of you, but yet you're not going to listen to them. They know you, they've been with you your whole life. They've seen you at your worst and seen you at your best. But yet you have this device, this information that, we're going to put some check boxes here. And if you have these check boxes, if you've done X, Y, and Z, oh, then you're depressed. or
Yeah.
you have this particular problem and you need this medication. When my son was 12, his mother wanted him to get medication for ADHD or ADD or one of the whatever. And she and I, we were divorced and we were debating the issue. Well, we went to a psychiatrist's office and it was like going into a future office. And I'll never forget, this guy was very nerdy. He looked like a Dexter, and with the black rim glasses and the short sleeve button up tie. And then he had this assistant who looked like a supermodel dressed in all leather. And it was just weird. And he spent about 3 minutes with my son and started writing him a script. And I kept saying it's a bad idea. It wasn't even a week. I get a phone call from the kid at 3 in the morning, and he had gotten up, taken a shower, gotten ready for school, ate breakfast, did his homework, all this stuff. He was wide awake. He was wired. He was talking 900 miles an hour. And I go wake your mom up. Go tell her what you just told me. And he did. And she took him off of those meds. So we were very fortunate with him in that regard. But, again, it's almost like the answer to every problem today is medication. And I am not an expert on medication. I do feel confident that we are an overly medicated society.
Right. Elizabeth? Oh, Craig?
Oh, go ahead, Craig. Go
No,
ahead.
I just have one thing on stress. In a more traditional, natural life, if there's a problem that causes you stress, you could take physical action against it and fix it. Let's say you're growing a garden to feed yourself and there's weeds. That's a problem. Well, you can pull the weeds, put a little sweat equity and make it better, right? Nowadays online, there are endless stressors upon every human being, problems that you can't fix. Somebody trolling you with a nameless, faceless account that over nothing you've done wrong. They're just attacking your name and you can't do anything about it,
Right.
right? That's stressful. And all these companies that can just put a charge on your card for something you haven't bought or service that you didn't pay for, but they take it out of your account and it's on you to go and undo it. Oh, the default is you're going to pay us monthly. And like, I never even signed up for that. Well, you got to go and spend 45 minutes agonizing through the process to undo it, or you're going to lose. Well, that default you lose world online is stressful. Stress causes a bunch of hormones and chemical cocktail that's meant to solve problems physically in an immediate way. And when you can't, then there's no outlet for that. And those stress hormones, if activated continually for months or years, destroy you.
Yeah.
Right? The cortisol and all that. It's not meant to
Sure.
live in that state. It causes massive inflammation. How do I know? I get shoulder pain that shocks my body and rocks my body. I can't even sleep a lot of nights. And then when I can't sleep, I'm not as effective the next day because it's stupid stuff that's stressful that, trying to get healthcare stuff done. You got to chase everybody down. Nobody does their job the first time. You get numerous laps around the horn. You're trying to drag a bunch of people and things together to get things done. And anyway, in this society, so many people are dysfunctional. You're like exhausted trying to get a lemonade stand put together,
Right.
just as a benign example. So that artificiality of the problems and without the ability to take physical action to solve it is highly stressful, and that's a problem for
Right.
Americans. And so that's why I think especially now they're saying that with the Wi-Fi and all the other electronic disruption of the way that your body is supposed to function, the cells and electromagnetic field and how it all naturally functions. They say, just getting out in nature is a therapy of its own. I believe that very strongly because when you get out from all the inner city and in the homes, all the blasting with all the electronics and all the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth and all the stuff, people are getting they're getting cancers on the brain on whichever side they talk to on their phone because it's irradiating that brain and it's disrupting their cells and it's distorting and causing cancer. And they can measure it. And it's like, well, don't hold that device that's emitting that much frequency and energy to your brain because it's highly disruptive. And who's telling us this? You have to go seek it out to find out it's true. But once you do, you see hundreds of people making videos. Go, yeah, we've run the studies, and so I said all that to say this: outside in nature, with the sound of the stream and that breeze blowing through the trees and the birds, it just becomes very, very beautiful compared to the disruption and the dysfunction that we're kind of locked into now in the inner cities. And
Mm.
if we become aware of that, we can kind of detach and detune, get away from the electronics and get out in what's more natural. And believe it is healing, it is peaceful, it is calming. I went up on the mountain several weeks ago with my new dog and just to pray and give thanks for my father, the dad that I had. And it was a beautiful day. And I was like, wow, the air was so crisp and clean up there. And it was just no phone calls, no disruptions. It was so beautiful. And that itself was a healing experience. So there's my observation on that stress in the out of doors.
Right. Elizabeth?
So I'm going to run with
There's a
what Craig
lot.
just said and then I'll go back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So number one, I can definitely like attest to what Craig is saying. When I have the privilege and the blessing to live in a mountain, I don't have to listen to traffic. I don't have to like every now and then like you hear neighbors stuff, but not really. Like I have the windows open and you can hear the birds, like you can hear the wind. I can go outside at night, like I can look at the stars and they're all pretty and I can look down at the valley and see all the glistening lights, which I think is pretty. But then like I have to go to the valley and I'm so stressed out when I go down there. Like everything's just at you. It's so busy, like you can't shut anything off. And I'm like, ugh, like I always
Yeah.
look forward to coming home and just being away from it. Like so I'm with Craig there. I just feel better even if I just go outside and put my feet in the dirt. Not with shoes on if I'm just like even feeling overwhelmed at home. I will go outside and I will just go put my feet in the dirt and walk around for a minute and I just feel better. But I'm gonna go back to how you started with your daughter. And I think that
Yeah.
I mean, she might be depressed. If you think about it, we live in a society that's driven by dopamine. Like our kids are being raised on dopamine. They don't know it different. They don't know how to control it. Like it's just constantly being fed to them. Whether it's games, whether it's social media, whether it's the internet, that they're getting all this stuff. It's the picture that I post that I got all these likes from, which makes them post more and differently in what they post about. And it's just feeding them constantly that when that's not there, when something happens, when something else gets interjected, they do feel depressed. And they probably are because all of a sudden that just quits and it changes your kids. Like
Mm.
it changes it. And we live in a society that's like feeding them, saying, you need that new phone. This will make you happy. You need to look like this. This will make you happy. This product will make you feel better about yourself. Get this, it'll improve your life. And you never find out how to do that on your own because it's being fed to you.
Yeah, you're right. I look at it, if we kind of turn it upside down, it her issues tend to be in the quiet, right? It's in the null that she has time to think about what isn't there, which busy people don't have time to do. So yes, it's that they've been trained to be busy, but they haven't been a friend to themselves and engineer quiet into their life. And that's obviously a fail, one that you don't know you're failing until you've failed it. Oh no, my daughter's doing dance, or they're doing soccer, or they're doing this, they're doing that. But it's interesting that that the world that we grew up in, you had an opportunity at different stages of your life to reset, to control alt delete a bit. If you couldn't do it when you left grammar school into middle school, if some things followed you, but it would trickle down into kind of ones and twos when you shifted your life to high school or definitely to college or entered the work world. There was a chance during the summertime that whatever the people thought of you during the year, you could reinvent yourself. There was a new beginning, new start. And I believe that's why I believe that churches were more practical and useful in that, because when you had, it was very unlike your regular day. You were cleansing the normal stuff to go do something different. And you did that. You went to a different place with different folks. You went on vacation, you experienced all that. But in this case, they enter the world, they're in this world where there's no place to control alt delete ever. If you did something when you were 12, it's going to follow you forever. And I am glad that I did all my dumb things, well, most of my dumb things, in a time where, it got thrown out with the trash. The newspaper got burned up. You left, you moved away, did this, did that. Our children live in a world where their record is their record. It is tattooed to them forever. And it's obscene and unholy, because the message that, and Craig, I'm not the overly, I'm not overly religious, but I will say that the message of the devil, of the evil one, is that you suck, that you're bad. Look, see here, right? That was like, look at this, look at that, look here, see that. When we were kids, we could get away from that. So look here, see that, look what you did. Remember when you farted in class or something, or you did, you bumble, your zipper was down, something stupid. Or even if you were a bully, Marky Mark, right? Mark Wahlberg was a brute. He blinded a guy back in his day. Now we know about that, but if that had happened during the time of this world we live in, he'd never get a job. He never would have gotten the opportunities, because that judgment is always there. And now that judgment is always on their mind. And that has been a very hard week, because I'm to share with everybody. This past week I had fallen into despair, which is really just kind of a moroseness. I closed off, I closed in. You start to ruminate on all these negativity things when you're dealing with your kids. What could I have done different? And the fact is that there's nothing most of the time. Good parents are good parents. They're trying. They're giving their all. And in that giving, they are giving the love that children need to get. But in this world where they can't control, alt delete these things, I don't know how they are going to find that quiet time to hear the message that you're okay. Right? I'm glad I was able to find that message for myself, but I don't know if I would have been able to find it now. Not with the radio playing the negativity thing, not with the Facebook and the always resurfacing, resurging, re-going. And I know that there's an answer. I know that things change, and I am grateful for the grace and the love that is out there. But I'm overwhelmed with thinking of how hard the journey is for my children, how much harder it is for them. And the absolute fears that some of them may not make it overwhelms me. That they won't experience that joy that, Craig, you talk about a lot, or that, that they won't really release it. That's really this overwhelming sense of dread that I have. Forrest, you have something?
Well, I certainly, I've made this comment, and Craig and I have talked about this on the radio show about failing and making mistakes. And those are, nobody learns anything from victory. Okay. We learn every mistake we ever made, we learn from that. And some of those lessons have been very hard lessons that we can all reflect back on. And what we're doing is we've removed the ability for you to learn from those things. So everything now, if the littlest thing happens to somebody, it's overly traumatic for them. And if you get embarrassed, I mean, I had two sisters that embarrassed me all the time, two older sisters, because that was their job. And I know Craig talks about his brother, all the torturing he did to him. But what did that do? It prepared Craig for the world. And what's funny is this, what people don't understand is when you have a sibling like that, I mean, Craig's brother, he basically, if you touch my brother, I'll beat your butt because I'm the only one allowed to do it. That was the love that he showed as a brother, as an older brother, that nobody was allowed to pick on him except for him. And so I think what that does is it allows you to process information in a manner in which you truly understand love and like and boundaries, these things that these social cues that we need. But today you'll have somebody that goes off the rails as an adult who has been exposed to social media and digital technology over a $5 cup of coffee, not having sugar in it, to the point where they get thrown in jail. It makes no sense whatsoever. And so I've noticed in the past 6 or 8 years, this behavior is getting more and more prevalent on airplanes, getting pulled over by law enforcement, at the fast food places, where we would have never, we understood, our parents taught us, if you act a fool, you get treated like a fool, and that you should have shame so as not to do that. So that's what I find that this does, is it tricks the brain. It's almost like it's a hack. It hacks your brain and not understanding logic. And when your brain doesn't understand logic, then what your greatest fear that you were talking about earlier is that's why we have suicide for little kids. I mean, they're 8 years old committing suicide. I mean, at 8 years old, we shouldn't even know what that is. We should have no idea.
Right. And what you said there about this amygdala hijack is we've weakened our souls, we've weakened our resolves by the microwave world we live in. There's nothing better than a home cooked meal made over time in pots and ovens. Nothing better. We all know it. Because when we have it, it's like, oh my God, this is the best macaroni and cheese ever, right? And we know it. But we have been lulled into now quick, fast, in a hurry. And our children won't even take the time. They won't even wait. You'd have to prepare that meal so far ahead of time so that when they got here, you could be like, now try this. And they wouldn't be able to appreciate it. Because it would be a now thing. Whereas I know that a chicken pot pie that I put in the microwave is not as good as if I put it in there for an hour, in the oven for an hour and something, in time. And I think that that's, that we've trained ourselves to be weak. We've practiced weak. We've practiced it. We've gotten automatic with our weaknesses. Oh, my feelings are hurt, oh, you're challenging me. Well, back in the day when people could haul off and beat the crap out of you, you knew there was a hierarchy. You knew that your mouth would get you in trouble. You'd have to cash that check. They would cash it for you. Nowadays, it's like, well, I'll get you, via the phone. I'll get you another way. And we become just kind of weasels, living in this lower, less noble place. And what do we see? When we were growing up, you didn't know what medications were out there. Maybe you knew what penicillin was. You didn't know anything else, though. You went and saw a doctor. Doctor says, you got this problem? Oh, okay, well, here, boom. He didn't ask you. He gave you a shot. Well, now we're going, I saw on TV this medicine. and I think I got Ebola, or I got this, I got that. And the doctors back in, I think that old timey doctors were like, that's not, and I'm not treating you. You want to take that, the people, that's what a doctor should tell you. No, not doing it. We could try you eating better. We can try you working out. We can try you doing the hard thing, because what you really needed are those endorphins that are built from a real, tangible place, not the med, right? But our kids, they're surrounded. And my daughter, who is uberly loved, never loved anybody more than her. I don't tell my other kids that, but I do. And she is just amazing. And yet she is surrounded by folks, broken homes, moms and dads that don't live together, strife, abuse, all of the things that I have tried, that I have been able to provide her in my older age. I've been able to provide her security, love, right? These things that are so hard, wicked hard to do, to love each other, to be able to fight and say sorry, all those things. Now, my daughter has seen that, but she is surrounded by those that don't have that. So where does it get? I think she thinks sometimes that she can't share with her friends because, they're like, oh, well, you have a perfect life. And that makes her alone. That isolates her. And so all of our love has done this opposite thing. It's made her not able to share with folks who really have it tough. And so she carries that burden by herself. And I'm sorry to bring it back to that, but honestly, it's what's on my heart. And I'd seen a lot of children who carry the burden that their parents place on them, this burden of be perfect, be better immediately. But the journey, it's such a mile. It's a hard mile with a lot of pounds on. And it's like, Craig's like, you got to carry the log, man. You can't stop. But everybody's saying, man, it's okay. Yeah, it's too hard. And yet,
well, look what it does to your logic chip.
You're gonna have to walk a mile anyway.
JT, look at what it does to your logic chip. I think there's a part of your brain that understands logic. And if you take Craig, how many bullets has Craig fired at a target in his lifetime to perfect his craft? How many hours of guitar did you play to master the guitar? And you'll never be a master.
Right.
I'm sure that Jimmy Page, when he dies, he thinks he could be better. I know when Neil Peart died, he thought he could be better. And when I had a son, he was a skateboarder, and he would complain, he would work on a trick. And I say, how many times did Tony Hawk fail before he achieved that trick? I said, it's got to be 10,000 times. And that the thing that we've done, you go back to the video game world, when they started saying, I call it God mode or unlimited ammo.
Yeah. Right.
That really ruined society, because whenever anything that we ever did, if you're playing kickball or you're playing football and you're getting smoked, there wasn't, timeout. Look, we're not playing really good, so you're gonna have to spot me 50 points. It just didn't work like that. We had to take our lumps, and then we had to analyze. And I think that's important to understand the analysis that we do based upon the struggles that we have and the failures that we have.
Yeah.
And what the technology is doing is it's getting in the way of that. Okay. I have my neighbor, their daughter is a junior in college.
Yeah.
And she's kind of an anomaly because she has no social media. She reads constantly. She is always reading. And she also does crafts. And she's like one of the most logical. It's weird. You have a great conversation with her and you can talk about anything. And she reminds me of us when we were growing up. And the only difference is that she's not into technology.
Well, that's because they're quiet, right? It's where we start at the beginning of this. I believe that there's a lack of the ability. They think that quiet is depression. They think that quiet is not love, or I'm missing out, fear of missing out. This world that we're living in is moving so fast. It's like, well, I'm hungry. You're not hungry. I'm starving. You're not starving. You're not in pain. You're in an existential crisis. No, you're not. You're just bored. Dostoevsky wrote, like, man is destined to vacillate between boredom and distress. We have to enjoy that 80% in between the the ecstasy and the pain and the agony of you know of failing ourselves. But if they never are quiet enough, if they, like that girl, she reads, she has to live in that world. She has to take in the information and let her brain do a thing with it. And that's what our children are not getting. And that is where Elizabeth is light years ahead of this. And I'm encouraged that at least she's given her children the ability to be quiet in their head and think, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? I'm going to whittle something out of wood. Go play out in the yard. There's nothing there. Make something. That's what we did. And we're better for it. But what the struggle is that we look at is like, I don't know whether to tell her to stand out in the yard until she gets a spark, creativity. But the girl is a dancer. It's like she's doing all the right things, but they're not helping her, right? She's the dance thing. Is, doing its work, which is the creative part, the part where you're really into it. You're just doing it. It's like, you guys understand what I mean? It's just stuff to do. Whereas guitar, music, writing, you gotta want it.
Yeah. Well, any of us that have learned skills, we realize it takes repetition. Nobody sat down and on the drums or the guitar or anything else the first day and like, oh yeah, I'm world-class expert at this. It takes a while. It's programming. We're coordinating our minds and our bodies to perform these skills. And everything, just like a computer, you get a brand new computer, if it's got zero software and it's worthless. It's got nothing to compute. So everything's programming. Our brains are the same way. And everything in our society now is programming us either up or down. It's really a binary system.
Yeah.
Again, back to the two worlds at war, the forces of good and evil. We're either programming ourselves to be selfish in a lower vibrational state of hoarding and abusing others and favor of yourself, me, or you're programming yourself higher to love and to give and focused on others. And in that higher frequency range of emotions, love, compassion, gratitude, all that, man, it feels so really, really good because that's how we were designed to function. And so if I see Elizabeth and she's struggling with baby carriage and she's pregnant and she's trying to get in the mall, and if I hold the door open for her, man, it feels good. And it didn't cost me much, but it's just a tiny little fraction of an effort. Like, this is right. This is decent and good to do. And I didn't gain anything from it except for on the inside, man, it feels, wow. What is that all about? I think when we analyze that, that allows us to understand why stomping on others doesn't really end up being that good. I can take their stuff, I can manipulate them, I can defeat them in business and ruin them and hoard for myself. But then why does it in my hookers and blow and my mansions and my Lambos in the yard, why do I still feel alone and empty and off myself? And that happens every day because people still figure that the programming of this fallen world is that you need to take and you deserve, you hoard and you Calgon yourself and blah 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 blah. And it's empty, it's false, it's glitter on a cesspool.
Yeah.
But I think, when we focus on just for an instance, and one example is gratitude. Man, for me, I cannot have a bad day if I sit and I decide to give thanks for all the things that I am grateful for.
Sure.
Because it can get loud in my head with all the tasks and all the things that are falling through and all the betrayals and the corruption in the world and all the filth, right? All the chaos and the bandwidth that's maxed. If I step outside and I put on beautiful, peaceful music that has an intentionality to it, that is to worship the creator, that is a beautiful spirit to it. And it makes me feel good just listening to why it was made and the sound of it, and tune out everything else. And I focus on saying, you know what? Thank you for the breath of my lungs. Thank you for the
Yeah.
sunrise.
Yeah.
Thank you for every lesson learned. Then I start getting into where it's this beautiful space, and my body starts vibing in a way that I cannot be depressed in that. I
Yeah.
cannot be
Right.
bitter and angry in that, because I'm full of a very high frequency gratitude state. And it affects everything. It affects my physical health. It affects my outlook, all of it. I cannot have a bad day in gratitude. No wonder there's a certain best-selling book of all time throughout humanity that says, "In everything, give thanks."
Yeah. Right.
And it
I
affects
think
those
Right.
if a lot of people would just exercise that basic principle and go, you know what?
Sure.
Yeah, it's raining. Yeah, I don't like who's running things. Yeah, I fell out of the bed on the wrong side, but let me give thanks.
Yeah.
Then it's miraculous to see how things turn around.
It's in psychology world, it's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If we're really paying attention, we've turned that triangle upside down. You know, they are, instead of meeting their basic needs, they're saying, no, I need to be self-actualized first. So they're not feeding themselves the right things. They're not learning the things that keeps to sustain life, you know. But when that they can say, was Alanis Morissette. She's like, it was, I think, "Thank You" is the name of the song, and it's like, stop saying that you're starving to death. I'm starving. Stop, making more of this than you're not. Because if you were, guess what? You don't have time to be depressed. You're hungry, and you got to go
Yeah.
find food. And that's what survival teaches you, man. To be cold, to be, I mean, in immense cold, 43 degrees below zero. You got to take your clothes off to sleep in two sleeping bags that you got to carry the next day, knowing you got to get up and put those frozen clothes back on you. I mean, that's misery, right? But all you're thinking about is how hungry you are. so,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
just know you keep going, and that I think, and I don't want to go. Boy, you don't know what it's like to be depressed, or you don't know what it's like to be hungry. I don't want her to, but I believe that if they really understood that, wow, I'm cold, and Dad's house isn't here. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You don't have time to be depressed, you know.
Yeah, but even
But
in a first world, in a secular, materialist, and humanist society, all that programming, all that electronics is all that messaging is about sell, sell, sell. And in
yeah,
that greed society, man, that lust for wealth above all else, man, all the big wealthy corporations bombing you, making you to sell their product. They have to make you feel like what do you have is not enough, and it's
you
not
got to need
okay.
it, right?
It's
Right.
all it's all materialistic. And if you tune out and you get outside and you're like, man, I this butterfly is
Yeah.
amazing right now. Look at all the
Well, I
colors.
tell you,
How does
you
that thing
guys,
do what it does? Look at this bumblebee. Look at this brook, this stream, these rocks here. Why does it
yeah,
feel so cold on my feet? It's amazing. Like I had a headache a few minutes ago. Now I feel incredible. It's just beautiful. You know what I mean? They don't want you to
yeah.
have that and
If you're
for
paying
that to be
attention,
enough, because they want to sell you their junk that they pay slave labor and are halfway around the world $3 and they're selling to you for over $100, right?
right?
They want to sell, sell, sell. I think, if we can detune, detached and tune into something more natural, something more organic and genuine, and just realize who we are and be grateful for it, then a lot of that stuff that causes us to be depressed falls off, because you kind
Well, I
of
tell you,
escape
you
it for a
guys have
minute.
made my perspective. And again, I recognize that it is in the isolation that we believe the lie. And I will vacillate into the quiet time and try to shoulder these things on my own and fail, time and time again. I know what's happening, right, when I go there. And yet, immediately reaching out to Forrest earlier today, I felt like, man, the valve was open, and it was I was so relieved. And then to have you all on here to hear that and talk through it and understand. And I just want to say to anybody that's watching is like, don't rage quit, you know, don't think, you gotta just hit the delete button. It's like, you gotta reach out, because it only takes a second. If you have friends, if you have someone who, and I mean somebody, it can't be just anybody, sometimes that'll work, but I mean somebody that will listen to you, just like Job. If you just sit here and just let me, release, cry, there's something when you say things out loud, they become a lot clearer, like if you're like, man, and I don't have a new car and everything, and the tax day is tomorrow, and blah, I was like, yeah, but are your kids healthy? Is anybody dying of cancer as far as you know? Like, is everybody healthy? And there you go. All of a sudden you're awake. All of a sudden you're awake. But that's the message. I can't wait to get more into this, because Elizabeth's done a lot of work that we need to get to. We're falling behind. I had some screenshots that I wanted to bring up of some of the things that she shared with it, but we'll share those on Friday, the next talk that we have. But I thank you all. I appreciate you all. I'm full of God's grace, knowing that I have friends. And if anybody out there is listening, and just send a message, I am go to the Facebook, make a comment on these videos, and I guarantee you we will get back to you. So with that, anybody got last words? Anybody else want to say something?
I do. I think,
Go
look,
ahead, Craig.
what I'm learning in my life, especially in prayer time, because I'm asking to learn. And what I'm being shown is my dysfunction. And God's saying everything's a choice, son. Like, you chose. Like, you can't blame someone else for distracting you. You
Yep.
allowed it. Ultimately, you have free will to take every thought captive. Everything is a choice. What you allow yourself to focus on is a choice. You can choose not to go down that road and allow that to distract you and eat up all your time, and then cause you to be frustrated and not get other things done. You chose.
That's right.
That's power, that you have that free will to choose not only where and how you focus, but who you choose to be, how you choose to think.
Yep.
So literally, it's taking every thought captive. You can have a distraction, you can have something thrown at you, but you choose whether or not to entertain it and to focus on it
Right.
or fixate on it. So you can focus on what you want, which is gratitude or others. And in that free will to choose, when we decide and find what it is that's productive and focus toward that, then all the other stuff can fall off. So I think for me, that's been life changing. It's been humbling to learn, but empowering, right? And it's in
Right.
love.
Right.
So if that blesses anybody, and I think it will if they apply it,
Oh,
I
definitely.
wanted to share that.
It's
So for,
powerful, man. Go
yeah.
ahead,
It is. It really is, man, if you understand it.
So for
Elizabeth.
me, just going off of what Craig just said, I know that like it sounds so much easier than what it is. Sometimes like you just have so much that overwhelms you and you can't help but think about it. It floods you and you're like the key in that is really noticing that. Get a piece of paper, get a journal, get a notebook, get anything. Write
Right.
everything
Right.
that you are so upset about, everything you hate, everything that you went wrong, and write it down. Now turn the page and flip it over. Just write three
Yeah.
things. Even if you don't believe in God, even if you don't believe in this or that or whatever, Write 3 things that are good in your life. Write 3 positive things. Write, the sun came up. I woke up. Even if it's as simple as that, 3 things every day. Do that for a month
Yeah.
and then go back to that original list and see how you view that.
Right.
And
Definitely.
it's really showing that to your kids, even like, yes, there's all of this stuff. Okay. I let you vent. You set it all out. And if they still can't get out of it after that, I'm like, okay, now tell me 3 good things that happened today. Tell me 3 things that you liked about today. 3 things that went right today because you woke up, you had breath in your lungs, just 3 things.
Yeah.
And then we'll attack it again tomorrow, and then attack it again tomorrow, and different things every day. And it really, man, it just changes their mindset. So that would
You're
be
absolutely right.
Forrest, your
Forrest?
turn. Go.
All right. Well, I went and saw my mom this weekend, and she shared something that it was very interesting because anybody that has been to my mom's house, Craig's been there, her backyard is just beautiful gardens. My mom has the green thumb. And George, who works with us, he asked her, because he was with me, he said, how do you do this? And she said she talks to her plants. She prays over them. She talks to them. She talks to every single one of them. And I watched her do it. I never thought about it, but my mom has had so many miracles, and they're the littlest things. I mean, she tells these stories about, like one time she was going to Israel, the last trip she took. She basically spent all her money to go. She had no cash to spend, and people showed up at the airport and gave her more than she needed so she could go on that trip. But my mom could tell you all day long these type of stories. Now, to the average person, if somebody gave you $20 or $50, they would be like, whatever. But if you needed that $20 at that moment,
you need it. Right.
man, that's the best $20 you ever got. And my mom has so many stories about things that have been done for her where she just believed it was going to happen. And because she's always had this, positive attitude. Now, she tells me she struggles too, that she calls them her dragons. I hope I'm not sharing anything that mom doesn't want me to share, but she's just a regular person, but she's talking about what Craig is talking about and what Elizabeth is talking about is be grateful for the little things. I think we overlook, and I'm really bad about it. I'm great. Like if you drive to work every day and you don't get into a crash, you should be grateful for that. It's a tough world out of the roads. So you like Elizabeth said, take the little things and sum them up. Imagine if you go into the refrigerator and you don't have a lot of food, but you're able to whip up a pretty cool meal with very little ingredients. You had to kind of think about it, and it's like a victory. You're like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And
no, right. When
so
the kids say that there's no food in the house, and you're like,
yeah, find joy in the little things.
Yeah. Kids are full of joy, aren't they?
Oh,
but
for sure.
Anyway, I love you guys. I can't wait for this new energy, just a renewing. And my cycle is I texted Forrest. I said I can see a bit of light, and I feel like I'm my heart is beating again. And Elizabeth, I'll send you a screenplay I wrote that has a lot to do with that coming back to life kind of thing, and the loss of stuff. I think you'd enjoy it. I don't know whether Forrest ever read it, but I'm not going to send it to him again. I would, Forrest. I'd send it to you. But
Okay.
I really think you'll get an insight of kind of some of the things, the fears. They're all there. But anyway, all of you, we'll talk again on just the next time.
All right.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks all.